Let me ask you something. If your house was on fire, would you sit down on the couch and cry about it? Would you pace around asking, why me? Why today? Why this house? Or would you, immediately and instinctively, grab a bucket, call 911, scream for help, run for the hose, break a window, do something, anything to put out the fire? Now I know. You'd say, Jim, of course I'd try to stop the fire. Exactly. Because in moments of crisis, when something real is burning, we don't have the luxury of sulking. We act, we move, we think fast. And yet, when the fire isn't literal, when it's not burning our house but our dreams, our finances, our time, we suddenly forget that same instinct. You know what's crazy? Some people spend more time complaining about their problems than it would take to fix them. I've seen it too many times. A man tells me, Jim, my business is falling apart. I ask, what are you doing about it? He says, nothing really. I'm just overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. That's the modern code word for, I've surrendered to my problems, but I want to sound sophisticated about it. Listen to me. The problem is never the problem. The real problem is your focus on the problem. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you want a better life, a richer life, a life where things work in your favor, you've got to train your mind to focus on solutions, not problems. You see, when I was young and broke mentally, emotionally, financially, I had this habit of spiraling. One bad thing happens, and suddenly I'm listing everything else that's wrong. I'm behind on rent, my car's leaking, I'm tired, my boss is an idiot, the government's unfair, on and on. But one day, my mentor sat me down and said, Jim, your mind is a garden. You can water weeds or you can water seeds, but whatever you water will grow. Let that land. Because what do most people do? They water the weeds. They obsess over what's broken, what's unfair, what's hard, what didn't go their way. They replay the problem like a movie loop in their heads, again and again and again, and then they wonder why their life feels stuck. You keep playing the wrong tape. That's why nothing changes. Here's a truth I learned the hard way. The more you focus on a problem, the heavier it becomes. The more you describe it, label it, argue about it, post about it, gossip about it, the more real it becomes in your mind. And your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So it starts adapting to that negative picture. It starts building a home in hopelessness. I'll give you an example. A young man came to me last year and said, Jim, I've been stuck in the same job for 8 years. I'm miserable. I asked, what have you done about it? He said, I talk about it all the time. I said, well, that explains it. You've turned your problem into a personality. Let me say this as clear as I can. Talking about your problems doesn't make you powerful. Solving them does. I'm not saying ignore reality. I'm saying don't build your identity around your difficulties. Here's the shift you need. Stop asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what can I do about it? Because that first question locks you in victim mode. The second one unlocks creativity. You see, when the mind shifts from complaint to curiosity, from poor me to what next, doors begin to open. You start to notice opportunities. A new idea, a book that speaks to your situation, a stranger who offers wisdom, a video that sparks a plan. But none of that happens if your head is buried in the mud of problems. Listen, I'm not trying to sound harsh. I'm trying to sound like someone who's been there. I've failed. I've lost money. I've made bad decisions. But the only thing that saved me was this. I refused to sit in the fire and cry. I looked for water. I looked for the exit. I looked for the solution. Now, here's a warning. The world doesn't reward the most hurt. It rewards the most resourceful. Let me say that again. The world doesn't reward you for having the biggest problems. It rewards you for solving them. Too many people today think that if they suffer loud enough, the world owes them something. But let me tell you something, my friend. Pain is universal. Solutions are not. And the person who can solve their pain, despite it, beyond it, above it, that's the person who becomes unstoppable. I want you to imagine this. Two people fall into a pit. Same depth, same darkness, same problem. One screams, curses, weeps, and waits for someone to find them. The other starts feeling the walls, stacking stones, building a ladder. Guess who gets out first? Don't let your mind become the prison guard of your own potential. You were born to create, not to complain. You were designed to solve, not to suffer in silence. Your mind is a tool, not a trash bin. Don't fill it with reasons why life is unfair. Fill it with ideas for how to make it better. If your life feels stuck right now, I'll tell you why. Not because the problem is too big, but because your solution muscle is too weak. And like any muscle, it grows by being used. Ask, try, learn, adjust. Try again. Keep going. That's the only way. You know, people ask me all the time, Jim, what's the secret to success? And I tell them, it's not knowing everything. It's not having all the answers. It's being committed to solving the next problem. Because the person who can solve one problem today will solve 2 tomorrow and 10 the week after. And pretty soon they're so good at solving, they start solving problems for other people. And that's how you get rich. That's how you lead. That's how you grow. The solution-minded person becomes valuable. The problem-focused person becomes stuck. So here's where I want you to start. Every time a problem shows up, catch your thoughts. Don't let them spiral. Don't let them dramatize. Just ask, what's the first thing I can do right now that moves this forward? Not the perfect thing, not the complete answer, just one step toward the solution. That one habit, practiced every single day, can change your life. Because guess what? Your life is not built on what happens to you. It's built on what you do about it. Don't be the man sitting in the fire. Be the one building the ladder. Be the one reaching for water. Be the one who says, this won't break me, it'll build me. And if no one told you this before, let me be the first. You are capable. You are creative. You are powerful. But only if you use your mind for what it was made for. Solutions, not problems. That's where we begin. Let me tell you where most people get it wrong. They think that talking about problems is the same as solving them. They think that awareness is transformation. They believe that naming the pain is enough to heal it. Let me make this clear. Awareness is the beginning, but action is the answer. And the tragedy is, most people never move past the beginning. They talk, they post, they vent, they repeat, but the needle never moves. Why? Because their mindset is wired to focus on what's wrong, not what's possible. You see, there are 2 types of people in the world. One sees a wall and complains about how high it is. The other sees a wall and starts looking for a ladder. Let me break this down piece by piece. The person who is problem-focused lives in reaction mode. They wait for life to get better. They wait for motivation. They wait for someone else to save them. And when things don't change, they double down on blaming. They say things like, life's unfair. My boss is toxic. There's just no opportunity. No one helps me. I can't catch a break. And the worst one, that's just how I am. No, it's not how you are. It's how you've been thinking. You weren't born defeated. You were taught to think defeated. And the good news is, if it was learned, it can be unlearned. Let me ask you something. When something goes wrong in your life, what's your first response? Do you ask, who's to blame? Or, what can I change? That one question exposes your whole operating system. Blame is easy. Blame is comfortable. Blame lets you off the hook. But blame is the language of the stuck. Solution-focused people don't waste time with blame. They take ownership. They ask better questions. They don't say, why me? They say, what's next? You know what the real issue is? Most people confuse suffering with strategy. They think if they suffer long enough, hard enough, loud enough, the world will hand them a solution. But life doesn't work that way. The world doesn't give sympathy points. It gives rewards to those who move forward despite the pain, not because of it. Let me give you a simple truth. The more time you spend describing the problem, the less time you have to design the solution. That's why you've got to protect your mental energy. You only get so many good thoughts a day. Why waste them repeating the same complaints? I once asked a man why he hadn't applied for a better job. He said, because I already know I won't get it. I said, "Ah, so you're playing chess with life, and you're checkmating yourself before the first move." That's what most people do. They think themselves into failure. They analyze their way into paralysis. They talk themselves out of possibility. Let me tell you something I've learned over and over. Problems scream, solutions whisper, and if your mind is too loud with fear, ego, and victimhood, you won't hear the whisper. That's why you've got to quiet the noise, not the external noise, the internal one. The stories you keep repeating that say, "I'm not ready," or "I don't have what it takes," or "This always happens to me." Because here's the dangerous part. When you tell yourself a lie long enough, it becomes your truth. Not because it's true, but because you've stopped questioning it. Let's talk about the most common lies problem-focused people believe. 1. I'm just being realistic. No, you're being limited. Realism without vision is just pessimism in disguise. 2. I tried before, it didn't work. So, try differently. Try smarter. Try again. Failure is not fatal. It's feedback. 3. I need to figure it all out before I start. Wrong. Action brings clarity. Waiting brings doubt. 4. This is just the way life is. No, this is just the way your life has been. And it can change, if you change. Now let's contrast that with solution-focused thinking. These people aren't smarter. They're not luckier. They've just trained their minds to respond differently. They ask questions like, what can I control right now? Who can I ask for help? What's one step forward? What's the opportunity in this setback? What would the version of me I admire do in this moment? They don't need life to be easy. They just need to know where the next move is. And because they're always in motion, momentum builds, and momentum beats motivation every time. Let me give you a powerful analogy. Imagine your life is a ship. If your ship is stuck in the harbor, it doesn't matter how expensive the boat is. If you don't raise the anchor, if you don't pick a direction, if you don't move, then the waves will toss you around and you'll start blaming the sea. But the solution-minded person? They check the wind, they adjust the sails, they move, even if it's just 1 degree forward. You don't need a new ocean. You need a better mindset. I remember one of my earliest mentors told me, "Jim, the size of the problem is never the issue. The issue is the size of the person facing it. So if the problem looks too big, maybe it's time to grow." Growth doesn't mean shouting affirmations in the mirror. It means asking better questions. It means taking responsibility. It means being humble enough to say, "I don't know, but I'm willing to learn." Let me say something dangerous here. You can become addicted to your problems because they give you something. Attention, excuses, identity, a reason not to try. And that's seductive. But if you're not careful, you'll end up defending your limitations more than you pursue your freedom. Don't fall in love with your struggle. Fall in love with your future. You are not your story. You are not your setback. You are not your worst day. You are the person who gets to decide what happens next. And that's the difference. Solution-focused people don't let their history dictate their destiny. They use it as fuel, not as a fence. So if you've been stuck, mentally, financially, emotionally, I want you to ask yourself today, have I been investing in the problem or the solution? Because whatever you invest in, time, energy, focus, will grow. And if you want things to change, if you want to finally break through the stuckness, the noise, the fear, then this is your call. Not to do everything, not to be perfect, but to begin. Remember, you don't need a miracle. You don't need the stars to align. You just need to start thinking like the person who solves, not suffers. And that, my friend, is how everything starts to change. All right, let's move from theory to traction. You've heard enough about the problem. You've seen how mindset traps you. Now let's talk about what to actually do. Because the truth is, most people don't lack motivation. They lack a system. They wake up every day and hope today's the day they'll finally change. But hope, as I always say, is not a strategy. If you want to train your mind to focus on solutions, you need habits, mental habits, emotional habits, thought habits. And like any habit, they start small, but compound fast. So here are 6 solution-driven practices I've used for over 4 decades. Not just ideas, these are disciplines. Use them daily, and I promise you, your entire life begins to shift toward solutions. Number 1, start every day with a solution question. Most people start their day checking email, scrolling headlines, or diving into the chaos of other people's problems. You want to change your direction? Ask yourself first thing in the morning, what's one problem I can solve today that would make the biggest difference in my life? Write it down. Don't aim for 50. Don't aim for perfection. Just one. Clarity breeds focus. Focus breeds momentum. That question, asked consistently, turns the mind from reactive to proactive. It teaches your brain to wake up looking for movement, not misery. Number 2, build the habit of writing your thoughts, especially when overwhelmed. When you're stuck in a problem, your mind becomes a hall of mirrors. Everything reflects everything else. You can't see straight. So here's the fix. Get it out of your head and onto paper. I'm not talking about journaling feelings. I'm talking about problem solving on paper. Write, here's the situation. Here's what I know. Here's what I don't. Here are 3 possible actions. You'd be surprised how smart you become when you write your thoughts down, and even more surprised how dumb your excuses look once you read them in daylight. Number 3, design a personal solution hour every week. I call this mental gym time. 1 hour, same time each week. Non-negotiable. You sit down with yourself and you ask, what's not working in my life right now? Then, what are 5 potential solutions I haven't tried yet? Not 1, not 2, 5. Why? Because forcing your mind to list 5 stretches your thinking. Usually the first 2 are obvious, the third is challenging, the fourth feels silly, and the fifth might be genius. If you don't train your brain to think beyond the obvious, you'll always live inside the box. Number 4, create a solution circle. A small group of people who refuse to let you whine. You need at least 2 people in your life who have 0 tolerance for your excuses. People who will say, okay, that sucks. Now what are you going to do about it? People who don't coddle you, but coach you. You don't need more sympathy. You need more strategy. And the people you surround yourself with determine which one you get. Make it a habit to meet every month, even if it's over coffee or a phone call. And each person brings a challenge and leaves with an action plan. Solutions don't grow in isolation. They grow in accountability. Number 5, reward progress, not perfection. A huge reason people stay stuck is they expect the first solution to work perfectly. And when it doesn't, they label it failure and go back to sulking. Wrong approach. You've got to rewire how you think about action. Don't ask, did I solve the whole thing? Ask, did I take the next step? Because next steps are the only thing that actually move you. Let me give you a Jimism. Small wins stack faster than big wishes. If you take small, consistent action, the solution reveals itself in layers, and the moment you reward yourself for movement, you stop being afraid to move. Number 6, teach what you're learning, out loud, to someone else. This is the ultimate shift. When you explain to someone how you're approaching a problem, even if you haven't solved it yet, your brain lights up. Because teaching forces clarity. You can't teach confusion. You can only teach what you've started to understand. So call a friend, talk to your partner, post a video if you're bold. Say, here's something I'm struggling with, and here's how I'm starting to solve it. Do that every week, and soon you'll become a magnet for growth. People will come to you, not because you have all the answers, but because you've trained yourself to ask better questions. And that, my friend, is rare. That's value. And value is what the world pays for. Let's not overcomplicate this. The solution-minded life is not about being perfect. It's not about being fearless. It's about being the kind of person who looks at chaos and says, let's build order. Who looks at debt and says, let's build a plan. Who looks at pain and says, there's still power in this moment. You become that person not by chance, but by choice, by practice, by training your inner voice to sound less like a victim and more like a leader. Let me say something that might sting. Most of the people who stay stuck are not lazy. They're just addicted to confusion. Because as long as you're confused, you don't have to act. But you're not confused. You're just under-practiced. So let's change that. Let me recap these 6 habits again so you don't forget. 1. Start your day with a solution question. 2. Write your way out of overwhelm. 3. Schedule a weekly solution hour. 4. Create a circle that rejects excuses. 5. Reward small steps, not perfect outcomes. 6. Teach what you're learning, out loud. Pick 2 and start today. Don't wait. Don't plan. Don't analyze. Just do. Because the world belongs to those who act. It always has. It always will. And here's the good news. Every problem you're facing right now already has a potential solution attached to it. But that solution only becomes visible to the person who moves toward it. The doorway doesn't open for the complainer. It opens for the committed. So be that person. Be the one who steps forward. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've finally decided to stop sitting with the problem and start dancing with the solution. Let me leave you with this. You've spent long enough rehearsing your problems. Now it's time to rehearse your power. You've spent enough nights blaming your past. Now it's time to build your future. You've wasted days describing what's broken. Now it's time to become the builder. This is your moment. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you decided to. I know how easy it is to say, it's not the right time. But let me tell you something. There is no perfect time. There is only the time you take control. Don't wait for the economy to fix itself. Don't wait for your boss to recognize you. Don't wait for your family to support you. Don't wait for motivation to strike like lightning. Decide. Act. Move. Now. You say you want to change your life? Then change the way you think. You say you want freedom? Then free yourself from the prison of complaining. You say you want results? Then stop telling the world about your problem and start showing it your progress. Let me ask you, what would happen if you made today the day you stopped being afraid of the problem? What would shift if you treated your mind like a tool, not a tape recorder stuck on repeat? What kind of leader would emerge if you stopped looking for someone to save you and became the one who saves yourself? That power, it's already in you, but it doesn't activate when you stay passive. It ignites when you take ownership. There's a difference between a life that happens to you and a life that is shaped by you. I've met janitors who are more powerful than CEOs because they decided to become solution makers. And I've seen millionaires who are miserable because they never learned how to stop whining and start growing. So I don't care what you've been through. I care what you're going to do about it. Don't let your life become a memorial to what went wrong. Let it become a monument to what you built anyway. And if you're waiting for a sign, this is it. This is your wake-up call. From now on, when the problem shows up, I want you to smile. Not because it's easy, but because you've trained for this. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who avoid the storm. They're the ones who learn to navigate through it. Because the most successful people didn't have fewer problems. They just refused to be defined by them. Because the people who change the world are not those who sit in circles and cry about how unfair it is. They're the ones who get up, roll up their sleeves, and say, all right, let's fix this. You can be that person. You can start today. You can rise above every limitation, every delay, every excuse, if you just commit to becoming a solution seeker. So let me leave you with the most powerful thing I ever learned. Success is not something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. Jim Rohn. And the person who attracts success? The person who builds wealth, purpose, confidence, and impact? That person is obsessed with solutions, not problems. Be that person. Think that way. Live that way. And your entire world will begin to shift. If no one told you this before, let me be the first. You are not stuck because of your circumstances. You are stuck because you've been focusing on the wrong thing. Change the focus, and you change everything. So from today forward, whenever a problem shows up, don't sit down, don't complain, don't wait. Stand up, ask a better question, find the first move, and make it. Because life doesn't reward the loudest complaint. It rewards the quietest courage. Be the one who acts. If this message lit something inside you, make sure you subscribe to Bizmind Mastery. This is where we train the mind. This is where we break the old story. This is where your next breakthrough begins. Thanks for watching. Now go build the solution.